Hello and welcome to my channel, Life's a Fixer-Upper. My name is Caesar and I want to do an introduction to my channel and myself and explain a little bit about why I created this channel and what I'm expecting to gain out of this channel. Now what I'm going to end up doing is two parts, because my channel was specifically named Life's a Fixer-Upper for two reasons. And I didn't want a super long video and bore you to death, so I decided to break it up into two. This part one that we're doing now is going to be introductions about myself, where the path my life has taken from the time I was around, 6, 7 years old, and the situations I've encountered all these years, and all the school of hard knocks that I've had to go through and things like that. The second part to this channel concerning Life's a Fixer-Upper is I am a licensed handyman for about 37 years now. And while I'm traveling, I still earn money, and I'm going to explain that in a few minutes. But along the way, I discovered that there's people out there who need some help, and they really just don't have the finances to get the kind of help that they need. So I'm going to do a second video while I'm here. Right now I'm in Bandera, Texas, and you can see I'm on the river. I thought it was a nice, peaceful place to make a video, and so let's get into it. Now, my name is Caesar. I am 57 years young. I have been married and divorced twice. I've raised 2 stepchildren, and I had a mother-in-law. You heard me right. She was a true mother-in-law. She was not an outlaw. I miss her. So I want to share some of my stories. Whenever I'm out and about and I'm talking to people, I've met some great people. And sometimes in conversation, things come up and I'm like, well, I have a story for that. And I'll share a story, a snippet of my life with them, and how it turned out or how I dealt with it, so on and so forth. And I just got to thinking, how many other folks are out there that I can talk to, or you can talk to me? Share your stories in the comments with me, and we maybe compare notes on how we handle different things to help each other. Because I don't know about you guys, but quite honestly, I'm tired of situations, and I'm tired of starting over, to be quite honest. But let me give you a little background history, and I'm not going to go into heavy details except for maybe future videos. We'll pick a topic that y'all may comment on, and then I'll go into more details. But let's start out, and don't worry, it's not going to drag out 100 years, I promise. But when I was around 5 years old, I guess it was, I didn't know who my dad was. And long story short, I know who they said he was, but there was no nothing there. So I never knew my dad. But along the way, my mom got married, and she married a military man. He was in the Army, and he knew she was a package deal, because at the time my mom had myself and I have an older sister. And he married her anyhow. And then he turned around and basically adopted us and did all the legal paperwork. And a part of that was my name was changed, and so was my sister's. Our name was changed to what our names are still till this day. And so now we're a family of 4, and it's great. I've got a dad. Somebody's going to start teaching me manly things, I guess you would say. Well, a couple of 3 years into this marriage, he gets murdered. And when I say murdered, I don't mean he died. I mean he was murdered. I'm from Augusta, Georgia, and he was killed in downtown Augusta. That's another video to talk about that. But here we are. I have no dad again. I got a mom. And before he passed away, they had their own child. So now I've got a baby sister who is about 5 years younger than me. So fast forwarding a little bit, my grandmother, her husband had passed away long about the same time. But because of the situation with my dad's passing, my mom had a nervous breakdown. So now all of a sudden my grandma is saddled with her daughter, going through a nervous breakdown and 3 small children to take care of, all alone while she's still recovering from her own husband passing away or grieving. So speeding up a little bit from that, I end up in a foster home for an extended period of time. So I understand when I meet foster kids, I know exactly what some of their stories mean because I have some of those stories also because I lived there for an extended period of time. Fortunately for me, after a while, and when I say a while, I don't mean days, weeks, or months, I mean a long while, my mom recovered and she was able to have all 3 of her kids back at home. And with the help of my grandmother, we were able to get a home. And now I've got a mom who's raising 3 young kids on Social Security because of my dad's benefits from the military. So let's fast forward a little bit from that. I never was a real good student, but I learned real quick that if I wanted anything, I had to figure out how to earn some money and buy it myself. So at 12 years old, I went to work. I borrowed a lawnmower and a rake and started mowing lawns in the neighborhood. And I remember getting up early mornings and start pushing that thing and walking and pushing. And after a while, I had quite a few customers. I was smart enough to know to keep going back to the same houses every week, you know, and see if they're ready for a repeat service. And that worked out for me. And then it helped my mom because there was times that my mom said, give me some money. And of course, I'm 12 years old. If your mom says, give you some money, you hand her some money. But I didn't really know the value of a dollar. I just knew to go to work. So if I wanted to buy something, I could. So I always had plenty of money for snacks or cookies or, I don't know, soda, whatever. And so that was working out good for me. Now let's fast forward just a little bit from that. By age 15, I had a 9th grade education and I was coming up on driving age. Well, this is around 14. And I knew I was going to have to do something. So I ended up being a 9th grade dropout, or I finished 9th grade, didn't start the 10th grade. So I did finish 9th. And I went to work. And at age 15, a gentleman by the name of Tommy, I won't use his last name, I don't have his permission, hired me at a local golf course called the Augusta National Golf Course. Now, for those of y'all who's not familiar, that's the golf course that sponsors that little tournament every year called the Masters. And so I got hired on to work on the nursery crew at 15 years old. And I was able to work a couple of Masters and things like that. And actually, it's fun for me. I made the front page of the Augusta Chronicle newspaper doing my job at the Augusta National during Masters Week. So over the years, I've got that newspaper clipping framed and everything, obviously for memories. But over the years in my life, it's come up with some makes good conversation in business meetings and things like that. So fast forward a little bit from that, my story goes, I did buy my own car. My first car was a 1972 Volkswagen Beetlebug, if I remember correctly. It was Hugger orange. I loved that car. It was so much fun. So much fun running around in that Volkswagen Beetlebug. So fast forwarding a little bit from that, I was dating this young lady, and she worked at a local restaurant back in the day called Quincy's, and she'd come to the house after her shift and bring me steak dinners and salads and stuff like that. And to be honest with you, I thought that was marriage material because I haven't dated nobody else that was feeding me and hanging out with me. And I'd wake up in the mornings, and I had my own single wide trailer, and I'd wake up in the mornings, my house would be clean. It took me 2 months to figure out it was her doing it because we'd sleep late, you know. So anyhow, long story short, I married that girl. She was 18, I was 19. And I was married to her for 14 years. So I thought we made a pretty good run at it. And we still amicable today. When I do see her on Facebook and stuff like that, we'll drop a line or two to each other. And she's doing well, and I'm happy for her. All these years later, she's never remarried, so she still got my last name. And then we'll fast forward a little bit from that. We were married 14 years, and we just got married young. We became roommates, and we went our separate ways. I made my mistakes, and quite honestly, I'm not sure if I even learned from my mistakes. A year or so later, I got married a second time to my teenage sweetheart. And that's kind of where my life started really taking off. I think I'd gotten a little bit of experience, gotten some experience under my belt, some wisdom under my belt. And when I married my second wife, she was a package deal. Now, in my eyes, my dad did the same thing. So to me, it was I didn't give it a second thought of marrying a woman that already had 2 children, because it was kind of like pay it forward a little bit. And so I married her, and I inherited a 7-year daughter and a 12-year-old son. And so as life went on, I was in the roofing business. I'd learned roofing when it started in roofing about 18, 19 years old. And I worked my way up the ladder, no pun intended, in roofing. I started out cleaning up the ground, toting shingles, whatever the grunt work was, I was doing it. But I knew that wasn't for me. That was hard work. It was hot, it was hard, it was dirty. But I started learning how to roof. And then after enough time went by, I became a crew chief. A little bit of time after that, I became a subcontractor with my own crew. And then throughout my second marriage, I opened up my own roofing company. Now, I earned every single dollar that it took with these 2 hands. And so when I tell people I got stories about all the things I've already shared with you, because I lived it. Each phase of that life I lived. So now let's fast forward. My second marriage was 20 years. We were together. I was able to raise my daughter and son. I was able to help get them through college along with my wife. My wife put herself back in school. She went and got her bachelor's degree, then she got her master's degree, and went on to some type of social work and licensed counselor with the Veterans Affairs, helping our veterans. So I'm very proud of that, that she put her talents and education to helping others. That was great. And my daughter finished college, and I always told the kids, y'all need to do better than me. Work smart, not hard, because all my life I had to break my back to make money. But I was fortunate. I did well with my roofing company. And I was able to grow my roofing company to about $1.4 million a year, all the way up till the crash of 2008, which was the mortgage crash. And anybody who was in construction back then can tell you some stories. And we all ended up pretty much losing everything we worked hard for and built up in the area. And so I had to liquidate everything that I had built up and basically start over again. So then I started with my own 2 hands. I did some research, and I started a floor cleaning company with intentions of just doing that for a little while until the housing market bounced back, and then go back into my roofing and so on and so forth. And I created a company called Castle Floor Care, and I ran it for 6 years, and I sold that company for song and dance, but I'm proud that it's still up and running this day in Augusta, Georgia. So that makes me proud that something I created is still alive. Right after that, I got back into handyman services, painting services, and still roofing, but I did a little twist. Instead of the company with a bunch of employees, I'm doing my own thing, my own 2 hands. So I would do roof repairs and things of that nature. And then if I had a replacement, I would just sub it out to a local crew that I knew personally, and I would supervise, make sure they was doing it to my standards. And that worked out really well. My daughter took me serious when I said marry someone better than me. So she started dating, and she ended up marrying a West Point graduate. He's in the Army, He's part of the cybersecurity division, and I'm very proud of him and her both. One, she did marry someone pretty smart, and I felt like I never had to worry about her. She was always good with money, and she married somebody was career minded with the military, and of course the private sector with cybersecurity and all looks real good. So saying all that, I felt like she did a great job. And then my son, I got to walk her down. Well, let me say this: I walked her down the aisle, and I was able to present her to her new husband, and that was a proud moment for me. And now they have two small children that are doing very well for what I understand. I don't see them or hear from them anymore, but for what I understand through the grapevine, they're doing well. I'll tell you why I don't hear from them in a moment. And then back to my son, I got him when he was 12. I never really had him. He was already loyal to his dad to a great extent. But I did the best I could with me having zero knowledge of raising kids. I've never fathered any children of my own, and I've never regretted that until recently, and I'll tell you why in a moment. But along with marrying someone as a package deal, you also get the baggage that comes with that. So I've got experience in all these areas, including ex-husbands, child support issues, visitation issues, vacation issues. It was a constant battle, constant battle. You'd send them to his house with their favorite video game, then you'd almost have to threaten to call the law to make him give it back because the kids wanted to bring it back home. You know what I'm saying? And it was just crazy stuff that we went through. One time he was a police officer, and he always told us he knew the law, he knew he could get away with. Well, it didn't necessarily work out that well for him, but any which case, moving on, I was able to attend my son's wedding, and I'm happy for him. And he has a baby girl that's doing well, for what I hear through the grapevine. And then I loved my wife, and I still love her, but she divorced me after all the kids were married off, and she graduated and everything. She divorced me. And I will say I made some mistakes during, at the tail end of our 20 years. And I'm not going to blame her, but I was real vocal concerned with my concerns during our marriage, and the concerns I had of our marriage. And it went on for quite a while where I just got ignored, totally ignored. But in the meantime, I'm working my tail off, and I'm providing the American dream for my wife and kids. On top of it, I had a mother-in-law who's been under my roof for 18 of those, 20 years. And I love my mother-in-law. She never was an outlaw. She was a good woman. God rest her soul. We buried her at 91 years of age. And I'm like everybody else. I know she's in a better place. And she was good to me. And I wouldn't trade none of that in for the world. And if I had to start all over, I'd marry her, raise the kids, and take care of my mother-in-law all over again. But maybe I could figure out how to avoid the divorce part, I made mistakes. She made mistakes. I thought we would work it out after a while, but she ended up about a year. I don't want to say less than a year, but in about a year, she remarried. She ended up marrying a guy who's been in commercial real estate and doing real well for himself. And I guess he was a few steps up the ladder above me, so she didn't waste no time remarrying. Now, saying all that, I think you're getting a feel for why I named my channel Life's a Fixer Upper. Because for me, it is a fixer upper. And these are all the things I've gone through from a very young age and coming up from there. And now what I'm doing is I've been divorced for 3.5 years, and I refused to just start over. I really want to work on me a little bit. Make sure I don't make the same mistakes again if I decide to get into another relationship. I don't want to drag baggage into that relationship. I want to go into that relationship, clean and complete, with confidence in myself and custody of myself. And so I'm thinking there's more people out there just like me, you know, that may be going the same thing, and we can share some. Also, I tried to figure out, what am I going to do now? And you know, the American dream is go to work, get your home, married, kids, and just keep going in the vicious circle. I discovered that I was working the American dream, but I wasn't living it. My wife, my ex-wife, and her kids and my mother-in-law was living the American dream. I was just the one providing it. You know, and after you've been ignored for so long, you kind of get tired of being the ATM machine. Or I used to have a saying, the mule. I used to tell them, don't worry about the mule, just load the cart. The mule will be fine. But you know, I was vocal to my wife, and how many of y'all out there was vocal to your spouses, and they just don't listen? It's not they don't hear you, they just don't listen. Mine would shrug me off and make little comments, you know, I'm saving your life, or you know, we'll talk later. Just really, I just got shrugged off, for the lack of a better word. And you know, for at least 5 years, I used to comment to my wife that, you know, I come home after a hard day's work, you don't even kiss me hello. Why don't you kiss me hello? Do you still love me? You know, where's the romance? Let's go do something together. You know, what I thought every married couple should do. So I feel like that if you're a married couple and you're struggling a little bit, I believe that I've got stories that I can share with you that may help save your marriage if you really love each other. So that should give you a feel for why I started this channel. And this is part one of it, because while I'm on this journey, I'm going to share my stories, and then who knows, maybe I'll get another shot at love and romance, and maybe I won't. I don't know. But let me tell you what I'm doing. So I'm traveling. First off, I thought the right thing to do, I went and bought a piece of land, and I bought a fifth wheel RV, and I called my RV Chappie for fun. And I thought, I'm going to take Chappie and buy this piece of land on Lake Hartwell, and I'm going to build me a 2-bedroom barn dominium, and I'm going to start my life over. And I cleared that land, and I mean, it was on Lake Hartwell. It was nice, hunting, fishing. I was out in the country. No, you didn't hear too many sirens. You hardly ever heard traffic unless it was a tractor or something going up the little road, you know, because it was country. But it never felt right. So I didn't build on it. I sold it. And I took a job with a nationwide company that does insurance work for fire and flood, things like that. And I won't mention the company name. I don't have permission to use it, or I didn't ask for permission. So, but they offered me a project management position in Charleston, South Carolina. And I thought, there you go. I need some new scenery. I'll take off to Charleston. That's a good paying job, and I'll meet people and start my life over there. And I lasted a couple of 3 months, 4 months, and I was just miserable. I was just, you know, fresh out of the divorce, lonely, I guess, didn't know nobody, know nothing. And my mom bought some land in a place called Harlem, Georgia. And so basically I came back, set Chappie up on her property, and I helped them remodel that house they bought so they could move into it. And then while that was happening, she was like, you need to purchase another piece of land and get it ready to build you a house on. And she would always say, still to this day, she says this, you're not getting any younger. You need a house, because one day you're going to have somewhere to live. Now, folks, let me tell y'all something. I'm not homeless, okay? I'm houseless, but I'm not homeless. Okay, and I'll touch bases on that more in a minute or two. So when we was wrapping up my mom's property, she found some property not far down the road, and she kept telling me I wasn't allowed to go far. She wanted to keep an eye on me. And I'm thinking, look, I'm you know, in my 50s, I need my privacy. And she's thinking that I still need some raising and some help, and she wants to know everything I'm doing. So we clashed a little bit there. But anyhow, 5 minutes down the road, a couple of acres of land. I buy it. I start clearing it off. I get it to the point where I got power, I got the well, and I take my RV Chappie and I put it on that property. And I had permits where I could live in my RV for 1 year while I'm building my home. And so again, I thought, well, I'll build that 2-bedroom barn-dominium and I'll start over right here. My mom's 5 minutes up the road. I'm close if they need me. You get the picture. And I thought it was the right thing to do. Now, I lost my sister, my oldest sister. I lost her a couple years prior to that, but I still have a baby sister. And I thought this will work out good because my younger sister lives in Augusta, close to Augusta, and, you know, we can just be a family. And I got a niece and a nephew and a brother-in-law and all, and I thought, okay, maybe this is the direction I need to go. But all along, it just didn't feel right. It just didn't feel right. Well, let me tell you, I'm running my business. As you can see here, I have a company called Just Call Me Jack. The whole purpose of that was to play off the pun Jack of all trades, because I've owned a floor cleaning company, I've owned a roofing company, I've done handyman work, you know, I've done a couple other little things. I'm OSHA certified. I have certifications in multiple different areas. And so I thought, when I created this company, I thought, okay, how do I name it so people understand where I'm coming from? But I didn't want a big business. I didn't want a bunch of employees like I used to have and all that. I've had at one time up to 65 employees, and I just didn't want that headache. And so I owned the company Just Call Me Jack. And I decided I wasn't happy. I wasn't comfortable. I wasn't sure if I wanted to break ground on that property as far as start building, but I did clear the land and get it set up. Well, because of my experience in roofing, I have worked 7 hurricanes over the past, 20-something years, 30 years. And I've worked 1 small earthquake, so I have experience. Well, in Georgia, we started hearing about this hurricane called Helene. And I'm sure y'all remember, it was the last one that come through the Gulf and up the coast. And everybody was asking me, what do you think about this Hurricane Helene? They talking about it's going to be rough and it's coming inland. And I said, I don't think much about it. I said, all the hurricanes I've been to, none of them has ever come this far inland. They've always come through the Gulf and crossed over Florida and out, or hit Alabama and fizzled out. Or they went up the East Coast, hit, Charleston, places like that, and they fizzle out. Charleston, North Carolina, fizzle out. I said, I don't foresee that thing coming across the Gulf and inland all the way to where we're at. And they said, what are you going to do? I said, I'm going to bed. And another one of my stories, I went to bed. And about 2:30 a.m., I was awakened from a dead sleep because I heard an explosion, folks. I mean an explosion. Now, when I tell you I've worked 7 hurricanes and 1 small earthquake, I've always showed up after everything was over, and me and my company are there to help people put their lives and their homes back together. And we'd put new roofs on the houses and, drywall, paint, siding, just, construction, helping people rebuild their homes so they can get their lives back together, insurance work and things of that nature. But I'd never lived through one. I've always showed up afterwards. When that explosion woke me up, I jumped up and I ran to the door and I went to look out, and it was so black I couldn't see 12 inches in front of my face. The wind was howling. The rain was just freaking just coming in sheets, And I knew then I'd messed up, that Helene did come inland, and she was a bad girl. And that's the nicest way I can put it. She was bad. And I closed the door, and in my RV Chappie, I have 2 steps that divides the bathroom and bedroom area from the kitchen, living room area. And I sat down on those 2 steps, and I thought, what am I going to do? I can't leave, can't see. and I'm in an RV, and I'm hearing trees on my property snapping like toothpicks, and they're exploding. And I kid y'all not, I'm gonna have to testify just a minute here. It was like God's hand was over my home, because I lost well over 100 trees on that piece of property, and I've got videos and pictures if anybody wants me to share it with them. My place was surrounded with big old pine trees. I'm talking about old pine trees that some of them you could put your arms around, and some of them you couldn't touch your fingers to. And they had exploded and fell all the way around my property, and nothing, and when I say nothing came within 10 feet, that's too close to me. But 10 feet was the closest. 10 and 12 feet was the closest they were to my home. And the only reason I figured the good Lord let me stay here and protect them is because he wasn't done with me. Now, saying all that, the property wasn't the same, and I wasn't feeling it. So I sold that property. I cleaned it up. It took me 2.5 days with a chainsaw just to cut enough of trees out of the way so I could drive my truck out of my driveway and go check on my mom and my sister and my neighbors. 2.5 days just to get off my property. And it wasn't but 2 acres of property. It wasn't even, a ranch or nothing. It was just a small piece of property. So saying all that, I ended up selling. I cleaned it up and I sold it. And I had to decide what feels right, what I want to do. And so I already owned the fifth wheel, and I already had a good heavy duty truck. And my truck is named Pearl. I own a 2019 Chevy Silverado Z71 diesel workhorse of a girl. And I named her Pearl, like the black pearl, because she's completely blacked out, okay? And so I decided to hook Pearl up to Chappie and head down the road. Now, I also own a Harley Davidson. My Harley is like the twin to my truck. It's also a 2019, and it's a Harley Street Glide Special, which means it's all blacked out, so it matches my truck, and that's the reason why I bought it. Being silly, I guess. I wanted them to match. And so here I am. I got Chappie hooked to the back of my truck, and I got my Harley Nikki hooked to the back of Chappie, and down the road I go. And I've been doing this for 3.5 years. So my plan was, I started on the East Coast in Georgia, and I thought, you know what, if I could work social networking, Craigslist, Marketplace, maybe Angie's List. I hadn't done that yet, and it's been 3.5 years. I still hadn't done Angie's List. But if I can talk to real estate agents, property management companies, and maybe pick up some extra work from them. And what I always do is I tell them, I don't want to replace none of the local handymen that you work with. But if you got the small stuff that they don't want to fool with, let me do it. Let me be your number 2. And let me do all the little small stuff and knock it out while they're handling your big business. And that's worked out okay. Not as good as I want, but I don't need as much as I used to need either. So that's worked out okay. And so I left Augusta, Georgia, and I went down to Rock Hill, Georgia, and Savannah, Georgia, and I did stay a month here and a month there, and I spent 2 or 3 months in that area and picked up some work and did okay there. Then I went on down to Destin, Florida, and I've spent a lot of time in Florida, so I really didn't want to stay in Florida. Florida's a dead end if you keep going straight. So I hung a right-hand turn to go the Gulf Coast was my plan. And I went from Destin, Florida to Pensacola, Florida, did some work down in Pensacola. Then I went right on into Alabama, and I stayed there for about a month, and I did some jobs in Alabama and met some good people there. And just give you an idea, I was working my way up the Gulf Coast, and then I got into Texas, and Galveston, Texas, and made some money there and enjoyed that. And then I decided to take a right-hand turn. Instead of going straight on into California or something, I took a right on into Texas, and I went to San Leon. Now this is where part 2's coming in at, as to what I'm going to ask for your help with, and information and knowledge. But I want to lead up on part 1 to this point here, so you understand my story and why I feel like a good name for my channel is Life's a Fixer Upper. It's because my whole life I've had to keep fixing myself and reinventing myself. And I've got stories I'd like to share them. You leave comments and let's talk. Maybe you share your story with me and we can help each other. Maybe we can grow together. If nothing else, let's all come together and make the world a little bit better place, one conversation at a time, right? So I'm going to end this part 1 here. I would love for you to join me with part 2. And for the first time, I think I'm supposed to say, how about like and subscribe my channel? And I'm going to go one step further and say, how about share it with someone that you know that may be interested in this too? And tune in for part 2, because then I'm going to tell you why I feel like life's a fixer-upper. I discovered a way. There's some people out there that need some help, and I believe that you'll help me help them. Until part 2, have a good day. I like it. I like it. I like it. I like it. Please tell.